The storm hit like a verdict from the heavens, sheets of rain lashing against the windshield of Alexander Hale's sleek black Mercedes as if punishing him for daring to drive through it. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles blanched, the leather creaking under the strain. It was the 3rd anniversary of Elena's death, the day the love of his life, his wife, had slipped away in a hospital bed, her hand growing cold in his while their 6-year-old son, Theo, waited in the hallway, oblivious to the fracture that would shatter their world. Alexander had promised her he'd be strong, that he'd hold their family together. But tonight, as thunder cracked like gunfire, all he could feel was the hollow ache of failure blooming in his chest. He pulled over on the deserted stretch of Pacific Coast Highway, the ocean beyond a churning black void mirroring the one inside him. Tears blurred his vision, hot and unbidden, mixing with the rain that seeped through the cracked window. Why her, God? Why not me? He whispered to the empty car, his voice breaking on the words. The betrayal wasn't from Elena. That wound was too pure, too final. But from life itself, from the universe that had handed him millions in tech fortune, yet stripped away the one thing money couldn't buy: wholeness. Denial had kept him afloat these years, numbing the edges with bored meetings and Theo's soccer games. But tonight, in the deluge, it cracked open. He slammed his fist against the dash, the pain sharp and fleeting, a poor substitute for the deeper one gnawing at his soul. Little did he know, across the road, under a sagging eucalyptus, another soul was unraveling in the same storm. A girl whose tears would become his lifeline. Alexander wiped his face with the sleeve of his sodden cashmere coat, the fabric clinging like a second skin, heavy with regret. He shouldn't be here, pulled over like some broken-down drifter on a night meant for hiding in his Malibu mansion, poring over Elena's old letters by the fire. But the road had called him out, a masochistic pilgrimage to the spot where they'd scattered her ashes 3 years ago. Theo was with the nanny, safe and dreaming of superheroes, while Alexander chased ghosts. Get it together, he muttered to his reflection in the rearview mirror, eyes red-rimmed and shadowed. Denial was his armor. The Hale Empire didn't falter for grief, and neither would he. Work harder, love less. That was the creed that had turned an orphan coder into a millionaire by 35. But the lie tasted bitter now, like the rain pooling in his collar. As lightning forked the sky, illuminating the highway in stark white, his gaze snagged on a figure huddled by the roadside. A girl, no, a young woman, curled against the tree, her wheelchair half-tipped in the mud, wheels spinning futilely against the slick earth. She was black, her dark curls plastered to her face, a vibrant red scarf unraveling like a flag of surrender. She wasn't just wet. She was weeping, shoulders heaving in silent sobs that cut through the roar of the wind. Something primal stirred in Alexander, a father's instinct, perhaps, twisted by his own loss. He killed the engine and stepped out, the rain assaulting him like icy needles, each drop a reminder of how fragile control truly was. Hey, he called, voice barely audible over the gale, but he pushed forward, coat flapping like broken wings. She didn't look up, lost in her tempest. Closer now, he saw the elegance beneath the dishevelment, tailored slacks muddied at the hems, a diamond necklace glinting defiantly against her collarbone. Not homeless. Then, what ghost haunted her so fiercely? He knelt, ignoring the mud soaking his bespoke trousers, and gently righted the chair. Miss? Are you okay? Her head snapped up, eyes wide and stormy, the color of polished obsidian flecked with gold. They held a depth that pierced him, raw and unfiltered, like staring into Elena's final gaze. Go away, she rasped, voice thick with accent. Nigerian, he guessed, the lilt softened by American years. I don't need pity. But her hands trembled on the armrests, betraying the bravado. Alexander hesitated, the denial in him screaming to retreat, to preserve his polished isolation. Strangers were variables, risks to his carefully curated pain. Yet, Theo's face flashed in his mind, small, trusting, asking last week why Daddy cried at night. He couldn't leave her like this. I'm Alexander, he said softly, extending a hand not to lift but to offer. And you look like you could use a dry towel more than solitude. She searched his face, suspicion warring with exhaustion, then nodded curtly. With careful strength, He helped her back into the chair, the rain masking his own shaky breaths. Her name was Zara Okoye. She murmured as he wheeled her toward his car. 28, a billionaire heiress to a pharma empire, struck down by a rare neurological disorder at 22 that confined her to this chair. Tonight marked the anniversary of her diagnosis, the day doctors had stolen her dreams of running marathons, of dancing at galas without assistance. I came to feel the rain on my skin, she confessed as he bundled her into the passenger seat, her voice a fragile thread. To remember what it was to run. But it just hurts more. The drive back to his home was a symphony of silence punctuated by thunder, the wipers slashing like metronomes to their unspoken griefs. Alexander stole glances at her, the way her fingers traced invisible patterns on her lap, perhaps old dance steps, ghosts of motion. Pain clawed at him anew, not just his own but hers, a mirror to the betrayal he'd felt when Elena's cancer laughed at his wealth, indifferent to infusions and specialists. I lost my wife, he admitted finally, the words tumbling out like stones from a dam. 3 years ago. She was everything, fierce, kind, the glue. And I keep thinking if I'd fought harder, donated more, she'd still be here. Denial laced his tone, the what-ifs a familiar litany. Zara turned, her gaze softening. Money buys cures for some, not all, she said quietly. But it can't buy absolution. You didn't fail her, Alexander. Life did. They arrived at the mansion, a glass-walled fortress overlooking the sea, lights warm against the storm. He carried her inside, her nod of permission a small victory, and settled her in the library, wrapping her in Elena's old quilt, the scent of lavender faint but enduring. Theo wandered in then, sick and tousled from interrupted sleep, clutching a stuffed elephant. Daddy, who's she? He whispered, eyes wide at the stranger in their home. Alexander's heart stuttered. Denial recoiled at this intrusion, the boy a reminder of what he'd failed to protect. But Zara smiled, weary yet genuine, and extended a hand. I'm Zara, little explorer. And you must be the king of this castle. Theo giggled, climbing onto the couch beside her, chattering about his day while Alexander watched from the doorway, a stranger in his own haven. As the night wore on, pain unfurled between them like smoke. Zara spoke of her father's empire, built on her mother's herbal remedies from Lagos markets, now a global force. Yet he disowned her after the diagnosis, deeming her broken goods, unfit for boardrooms or heirs. He said I was no longer his legacy, she whispered, tears carving paths down her cheeks. Betrayed by blood. I built my own billions in adaptive tech, but the hole, it aches. Alexander nodded, throat tight, sharing how Elena's family had blamed him for not saving her, their grief twisting into accusations that echoed in his nightmares. I wake up reaching for her, he confessed, voice cracking, and find only empty sheets. Theo, sensing the shift, curled against Zara, his small hand on hers. Mommy's in the stars, he murmured wisely beyond years. She watches us rain dance. In that velvet hour, pain bound them, not as victims, but as survivors whispering truths into the dark. Alexander felt the first fissure in his denial, the illusion that solitude healed. Zara's presence, fragile and fierce, cracked it wide. They talked until dawn teased the horizon, the storm ebbing to a drizzle. Small victories emerged, Theo's laughter, a shared pot of chamomile tea, the way Zara's eyes lit when he showed her Elena's sketchbook, pages alive with dreams. But pain lingered, a shadow promising more tempests. As he wheeled her to a guest room, she paused. Thank you for seeing me, she said. He squeezed her shoulder, the touch electric with unspoken promise. Thank you for crying loud enough for me to hear. In that moment, denial began to dissolve, pain's raw edge honing into something sharper, awareness. Morning light filtered through the library's floor-to-ceiling windows, painting the room in golds and blues, the ocean beyond a serene counterpoint to the night's fury. Alexander hadn't slept. Instead, he'd sat by the window, Zara's words replaying like a mantra. Asterisk, you didn't fail her. Life did. Asterisk reflection crept in unbidden, a quiet thief stealing the sharp corners of his grief. He watched Theo and Zara in the sunroom, the boy building block towers while she directed with animated gestures, her laughter a melody he'd forgotten existed, light, unburdened. His son, with his mother's curls and his father's stubborn chin, beamed up at her as if she'd always been there. Alexander's chest tightened, not with pain's vice, but with a softer ache. Wonder. How had this stranger, this billionaire in a borrowed robe, slipped past his walls so effortlessly? He joined them, coffee steaming in mugs, the aroma grounding him. Zara, I don't know what to say, he began, settling into an armchair, the leather sighing like an old friend. Reflection demanded honesty, peeling back layers he'd armored over. Last night, their conversation meandered like the coastal paths outside, slow and winding, internal dialogues spilling into shared space. Alexander spoke of Elena's final days, the denial that had him scheduling treatments like business deals, ignoring her pleas for simple picnics under the stars. I thought control was love, he admitted, rubbing his temples. But it was fear. Fear of losing. Moral of the story: healing is not a solitary battle but a communal dance. In extending a hand to another's pain, we illuminate our own path to inner strength and unbreakable peace.